Hey guys, welcome back to this Fiendsmith video. We are going to talk about the Fiendsmith engine, the new meta-changing engine coming to us on Thursday. Obviously, there will be live streams. I will be playing all day with all of the new cards, but one of the most interesting things is this new Fiendsmith engine that we are getting now in Master Duel. We will first talk about every card so that you understand how these cards operate. I have the Fiendsmith engine here, the most important cards, and then support cards like the Fabled Lurry or the Beatrice, which are not in on of themselves Fiendsmith cards, but will be used in the Fiendsmith engine. If you go ahead and type in Fiendsmith here to find all the Fiendsmith cards, you can also see that there are more Fiendsmith cards that I have placed here. This is because some of the cards will not really be used, or some of them I'm also not quite sure whether we will get them. The first wave not consisting of, for example, Lacrima, the Scarlet Sorrow and Agnum Day, but I am guessing that we will also get the second wave. The third wave would then be Fiendsmith's Kyrie as well as Fiendsmith's Rex Tremende, which both of them are not really being used, so it's not very important. Not quite sure how much wave we will get, but I guess first and second, and if we only get first, then the Fiendsmith engine still works in what it wants to accomplish. And there are other cards like, for example, the Fiendsmith Sanct, which would be in the first wave, but is just not a great card. You will not really play them, so we are not going to talk about them. So first and all, before I show you some combos where you then will visually understand what the Fiendsmith engine is trying to accomplish, let's read the cards. So we have the most important card, the Fiendsmith himself, which says you can discard this card, add one Fiendsmith spell trap from your deck to your hand. The card that you will normally add is Fiendsmith Tracked. You could also add Fiendsmith in Paradise. And then it says you can target one Fiendsmith equip card you control and one monster on the field, send them to the graveyard. All of the link monsters can be equipped to Light Fiend monsters, which is how these cards can get their equip cards, right? The third effect, as if this was not enough, is if this card is in your graveyard, you can shuffle one other Light Fiend monster from your graveyard into the extra deck to special summon this card once per turn. This is the gimmick of the deck. Firstly, the equipment gimmick, you could call it, but secondly, you can recycle your resources to the extra deck, to the deck with a lot of your cards to basically activate effects, which makes this a very consistent grind game engine. And this is why this engine is so nice for the game, so healthy, because this slows down the game, especially because you will see this engine in a lot of different decks. Normally you want to start with the Fiendsmith, which we will get at 2. Another cool point here is that the cards that you are seeing on screen are basically what you want to put into your deck when you play the Fiendsmith engine. You might want to bump up the Fiendsmith track to maybe 2, but nothing more than that. So even if a lot of the cards are ultra rare, you will not need a lot of those cards, at least not multiple of them. So I can't really imagine Fiendsmith being a very expensive engine. So we have the Fiendsmith at 2, which is the best starter. It's a bit sad that we are getting this at 2. It is definitely impactful, since starting with the track, for example, which would be the first thing that you search with your engraver, as you will see in the combo, is worse, since then you are missing a Light Fiend body, and these Light Fiend bodies you will need to do your fusion summons, for example, into the Lacrima or the Desiree. Then we have Fiendsmith Tracked. Says add one Light Fiend monster from your deck to your hand and then discard one card. The main target for this is Fabled Lurry, which is not a Fiendsmith card itself, but it's a Light Fiend, which says when this card is discarded, so this effect basically, from your hand to the graveyard, you can special summon it. And Light Fiend is so important because a lot of the extra deck monsters, like for example Fiendsmith Requiem, one Light Fiend monster, or the Fiendsmith Sequence, 2 monsters including a Light Fiend monster, need Light Fiend monsters. And this is why in decks that don't normally have Light Fiend monsters in them, you are playing the Fabled Lurry to have him grabbable with the Fiendsmith Tracked. Add one Light Fiend monster from your deck to your hand, normally the Lurry, then discard one card. But you can also discard another card, does not have to be the card that you have added. Then this can also banish from the graveyard to fusion summon one Fiendsmith fusion monster from the extra deck using monsters from hand or field. There's a better fusion effect in another card that we will read in a second, but this can come up from time to time. There's always a balance here in the Fiendsmith engine between keeping your Light Fiends in the graveyard, so you can, for example, reshuffle them to activate different effects, and using them for a fusion summon, recycling them. So you always want to strike a little bit of a balance between having Light Fiends in your graveyard and using using them to be shuffled back in order to activate effects. Then we have the Fiendsmith in Paradise. Target one level 7 or higher light fiend monster you control, so the fusion here for example, which is your end boss monster. Send all cards on the field to the graveyard that are not that monster. Very strong, but not really what we are using this for. We are using this as an additional graveyard interruption. If your opponent special summons a monster while this card is in your graveyard, we can then banish this card from the graveyard for cost, send one Fiendsmith monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard. This is normally used to send the Fiendsmith Desiree, and Fiendsmith Desiree has then the ability to send something on the field to the graveyard. We will read this in a second. Normally you will send this with Lacrima, the Scarlet Sorrow, on your second turn, but I will show you all of this in the little combo tutorial. Not really a combo, but I will show you some moves so that you understand the engine better. If we don't get the Lacrima, we will probably not play the Fiendsmith in Paradise, but then only if we get the Lacrima. Lacrima says always Fiendsmith card. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send one Fiendsmith card from your deck to the graveyard except the Lacrima, which is nice because we can send an engraver. So if we have not started with an engraver, for example, we can then get an engraver. This is very good. Also, it says during your opponent's turn, if this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, you can target one Fiendsmith Link monster in your graveyard, shuffle this card into the deck, recycle, and if you do a special summon that monster. Normally you special summon a Fiendsmith Requiem, which can then go ahead and send another Fiendsmith to the graveyard, but you could also use a Lacrima's effect to send the Fiendsmith in Paradise on your opponent's turn, and then this second effect that we have just talked about would be live. Then we have the extra deck monsters, which are the most important ones, you could say. We have the most important one in Fiendsmith Requiem. This card can only be made once per turn and needs one light fiend monster, which is also the reason, by the way, why we are playing this card, the Moon of the Closed Heaven, which is already in game. It's an ultra rare. This card basically says convert any 2 effect monsters that you have into the Fiendsmith Requiem, because this is a light fiend monster. This is the only reason we are playing this card. We can make 2 effect monsters, any 2 effect monsters, into Fiendsmith Requiem and thereby activate or achieve the entrance into our Fiendsmith engine if you so will. So this is why we are playing the Moon. Every deck can bridge into the Fiendsmith engine with the Moon of the Closed Heaven, which is why you are seeing this package everywhere. Then we have the Fiendsmith Requiem. This is the only use, by the way. You can only special summon this once, this I already said, and then quick effect, you can tribute this card, special summon one Fiendsmith monster from your hand or deck. If you don't get the Lacrima, then you will special summon the engraver. If we get the Lacrima, you will just special summon Lacrima and send the engraver to the graveyard. This would then basically be the same thing, but you have an additional body. And then it also says, like all of the other Link monsters, you can target one light non-Link fiend monster you control. So Links cannot be equipped to Links, but only to fusion and normal monsters, light fiend monsters. Equip this card from your field or graveyard to that monster or XYZ as an equip spell that gives it a 600 attack. Then we have Fiendsmith Sequence, the fusion monster of the archetype, needing 2 monsters, including a light fiend monster. So one light fiend monster is enough, but another one will be needed. During your mate phase, you can fusion summon one fiend monster or one fiend fusion monster from your extra deck by shuffling its materials from your graveyard into the deck. So this is way better than the Fiendsmith Track, which can only fusion from hand or field. You can use your bodies on the field to make, for example, this Link 2 here, and then they are in the graveyard, obviously, and then you can use them, shuffle them back, and fusion summon with them. Once again, there's a balance to be struck here between keeping these cards in your graveyard to activate, for example, your engraver or to activate your Lacrima, and using them for a fusion summon. Always very important. Then you can also target one light non-Link fiend monster you control, like the Requiem. Basically equip this card from your field or graveyard to that monster, and then it gains this effect. Your opponent cannot target the equipped monster with card effects, which is normally what you are going to do in order to protect your end boss monster, Fiendsmith Desiree, from being targeted. Talking about Fiendsmith Desiree, we need Fiendsmith Engraver plus 2 light fiend monsters for this. So fusion summoning this will shuffle a lot of material back into our deck, and then we don't have them in the graveyard anymore to activate further effects. So this also costs us something, but this is a cool boss monster that we are getting here. Quick effect, we can negate the effect of a number of face-up cards on the field up to the total Link rating of Link monsters equipped to this card until the end of this turn. So for example, if we have a sequence equipped to the Fiendsmith Desiree, making it untargetable, we also have 2 cards, 2 open cards that we can negate until the end phase. This is very funny because this can also negate our own cards. This came up or will come up in the combo with the Snake Eyes cards, being able to negate your own Promethean Princess so that you can use the princess and another body for an Appaloosa, which normally you would be fire locked here. If this card is sent to the graveyard, which is why we want to send it with the Fiendsmith in Paradise, if this card is sent to the graveyard, we can also shuffle one other light fiend monster from your graveyard into the deck extra deck, once again recycle, then target one card on the field and send it to the graveyard. It's also very important this is send, like with the Fiendsmith Engraver, not destroy, so this makes a difference in some cases. This is our end boss monster, being an face up card, Omni Negate for 2 normally. You have the Fiendsmith sequence equipped to this very strong card. And then we have our Fiendsmith Lacrima. This is forbidden in the TCG. Need 2 light fiend monsters. Monsters your opponent control loses 600 attack, okay, and then you can only use this once. If this card is fusion summoned, you can target one of your light fiend monsters that is banished or in your graveyard, add it to your hand, or special summon it. This is very nice. This can, for example, add the Engraver, and you can not only special summon the Engraver to have 2 level 6 bodies. Now this is a level 6 body and Engraver also is, but you can also add the Engraver to the hand if you have not yet used Engraver's first effect to be discarded to add the Fiendsmith Tract or the Fiendsmith in Paradise. So Fiendsmith Lacrima, very strong. And then the effect why this card was probably banned in the TCG is the next one, which is not relevant for us. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can shuffle one other light fiend monster from your graveyard into the extra deck. Once again, we are recycling resources, inflict 1200 damage to your opponent. So in the past, you would want to use this effect to shuffle stuff back, but now, because we probably will have the Lacrima, you want to keep your light field bodies in the graveyard, so I guess we will not really be activating this, I suppose. So Fiendsmith Lacrima, very strong card that can basically get you into 2 level 6 bodies, which you can then use to make your rank 6 XYZs of the Fiendsmith engine, which we will talk about in a moment. Last Fiendsmith card to talk about here is the Fiendsmith's Agnum Day. Fiendsmith's Agnum Day says 2 monsters including a light fiend monster, once per turn, quick effect. You can target one light non-link fiend monster in your graveyard, so the fusions or basic monsters, special summon it, so the targeted monster, and if you do, equip this card you control to it as an equip spell with the following effects. The equipped monster gains attack equal to the total link rating of link monsters equipped to it times 600 if the equipped monster attacks a defense position monster, piercing damage. So this might sound a bit confusing, but what you can achieve here is that firstly you go into your Fiendsmith sequence, fusion summon your boss monster, the Fiendsmith Desiree, and then you can, for example, link your Desiree away into the graveyard to get into your Fiendsmith's Agnum Day, and then pass over to your opponent, and Fiendsmith's Agnum Day on your opponent's turn would also be able to quick effect revive the Desiree and equip itself to the Desiree, which would mean Desiree would now have 3 open field negates basically. What you can also do is link even further and put the Fiendsmith's Agnum Day in the graveyard together with the Desiree to, I don't know, go into an Appaloosa or whatever, and then if you have your Lacrima, the Scarlet Sorrow, in your graveyard, you could use Lacrima's effect, which says during your opponent's turn, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target one Fiendsmith Link monster, in this case the Agnum Day, to special summon Agnum Day and shuffle back Scarlet Sorrow. And if you then special summon Agnum Day, then once again you can resummon your Desiree. So from the point that you have Desiree on your field, you can link climb into your Agnum Day, which you can then use to link climb even further, putting Agnum Day and Desiree into the graveyard, but you will still be able, if you have the Lacrima, to get the Desiree negate back on the board. So very strong, but as already said, we will see whether we get Fiendsmith's Agnum Day. And then we have 4 cards that are not Fiendsmith cards, but that will be very relevant. Firstly, the Necro Crypt Princess as well as the Aerial Eater. These are TCG exclusives, of which we do not yet know if we will get them. I guess we will have to see. You can fusion summon them both because those are fiend fusion monsters, light fiend, sorry, no, they're not light fiend, but you can fusion summon the Aerial Eater at least. The Necro Crypt Princess, you are basically making another way. It needs one monster equipped with a monster card, so for example your Fiendsmith Engraver, or most commonly your Lacrima equipped with the Fiendsmith Requiem wood. suffice this condition plus 1 Fiend monster card. Must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending the above cards from your hand or field to the graveyard. So contact fusion. So you can equip your Fiendsmith Requiem from the grave to your Lacrima, and then you have 1 monster equipped with a monster card and 1 Fiend monster card. So you can use this equipped Lacrima to go into your Necro Crypt. This is important because the Lacrima would be a level 4, but the Necro Crypt is a level 6. So then if you have also an engraver in the graveyard, you have 2 level 6s which can get you into your Beatrice or your DD Wave King High Caesar. This also has an interesting effect that if a monster effect is activated and is discarded, so for example your Fiendsmith Engraver or an Effect Veiler, for example, you can activate the effect of Necro Crypt Princess to draw a card. You could also equip one of those monsters to this card as an equip spell, but normally you would just draw 1 card. This can definitely be nice, especially if your opponent throws some hand traps at you. Then we have the Aerator, which is basically only here for Jubel, 2 Fiend monsters with the same attribute. If this card is fusion summoned, you can send 1 Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can send some Sauradi Lotus to revive it and start your Fiendsmith combo, your Jubel combo. This is how you can bridge from your Fiendsmith engine into your Jubel engine. And this is the good thing about Fiendsmith. The Fiendsmith engine will be able to get into, for example, the Snake Eyes engine, the Memento engine, or the Jubel engine. And I will talk about how in a second here. But you can firstly use the Aerial Eater for that, and also if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 2 level 6 or higher Fiend monsters with the same attribute as each other from your graveyard and special summon this guy, also nice. And then we have our 2 rank 6s. Obviously you can also go into other rank 6s if you want to, but these are the 2 that you most commonly make. The first one being DD Wave King High Caesar, which is very important because this is basically countering Nibiru or any other important hand traps that basically, or not hand traps, I guess only Nibiru, but this is an interaction itself on your opponent's turn and negating 2 cards that special summon, and you can make this with 2 level 6 monsters. So you could use your Fiendsmith engine first, since you normally don't need a normal summon if you start with the Engraver, which is your best start. Then everything here is special summon. If you start with your Fiendsmith Tract, everything is special summon. Only if you start with Lacrima normal summon, then you would have used up your normal summon, but otherwise you could just use your Fiendsmith engine first, go into a DD Wave King High Caesar, and then be safe from Nip, and then do your Snake Eyes, Jubel, or whatever play, Memento play afterwards. This is why the DD Wave King High Caesar is so good. But then we have Beatrice, which is now forbidden because it was really insane with her, but we have her in Master Duels, so really insane. 2 level 6 monsters, and it says if summoned this way, blah blah blah, once per turn, quick effect, you can detach raw material from this card, send 1 card from your deck to the graveyard. And we can use this, for example, and I will obviously show you this in the full combo videos that I will be posting for every important deck, to send a Snake Eye Ash to the graveyard and then revive the Snake Eye Ash for the Promethean Princess or with the Promethean Princess. When it comes to Jubel, you could say you could send your Samsara Lotus, revive it, and then play from there. For Memento, for example, I'm not quite sure with Memento, maybe you guys know, but I think we are sending the Goblin here to make our combo work. So you can send a lot of things to start your combo, and there's also this card, the Angel of Blue Tears, which can basically be used with the Beatrice on your opponent's turn to set any trap card, or I think you would do it on your turn, sorry. You could also, for example, Black Goat Loves was another card often used. The Black Goat Loves, you can also send this to the graveyard with your Beatrice with your second send. So if you need your first send to go into your engine like Snake Eyes, then you can use the second send on your opponent's turn to, for example, send the Black Goat Loves, which can then be activated on your opponent's turn in the graveyard. So this is the Fiendsmith engine. This is what you can do with this engine. You can start a lot of other engines with this engine. You can make a Caesar, you can make a Omni Negate, and then play from there without using up your normal summon. And you will also, and this is the most important thing, I think, have these cards in the graveyard then, so when the next turn comes, you can once again start with your Fiendsmith stuff, since you have also shuffled back a lot of cards, or can shuffle back a lot of cards with your, for example, Fiendsmith Engraver. You will have automatically some plays on your next turn if your board might get broken, and then you have this recursion effect of the Fiendsmith cards, this grind game effect, where you want to play a lot of Bestials, you want to banish your opponent's Fiendsmith monsters from the graveyard so they cannot access their Fiendsmith engine on on the second turn or the turn afterwards. So it adds a really cool grind game situation to the game. I hope this engine stays for a long time. It's very nice. It's also very healthy in my opinion. But now let us hop on over to the combo guide, if you will, where I show you some basic combos so that you can visually understand what I told you here. So let's say we are starting with the Fiendsmith Engraver. There are a few different things that you can do. I obviously won't show you a full combo here, but normally we will grab ahead the Fiendsmith tract. As I have explained, we will activate a Fiendsmith tract here in order to grab the Fabled Lurry, which we then have to discard immediately. And this mandatory effect engrave triggers now Fabled Lurry to be revived here. We are going to revive this now. And now we can make Light Fiend our Fiendsmith's Requiem, like I have talked about. Then the next thing, quick little thing here, you can now put your little toggle button on the bottom right corner, you can't see it right now, to on, and basically activate the Fiendsmith's Requiem first thing after the summon of the Fiendsmith Requiem. This can play around a few plays, not super important, but if you want to play it perfectly, you would basically use this first window that you as the turn player have to activate Fiendsmith's Requiem here. Then we are going to summon either the Fiendsmith Engraver if we do not get the Lacrima, or the Lacrima if we do get her. In the end, both of them are going to achieve 2 level 6 bodies here. So Lacrima comes to the field, and then we are activating her to normally send Fiendsmith Engraver so that we have access to one. You could also send the Fiendsmith in Paradise. At this point, this interruption would be live, but there will be a later time on our opponent's turn where we can also send Fiendsmith in Paradise. So we are sending the Engraver here, and now we can, for example, let's say we want to make summon our Engraver first. Normally you want to shuffle back your Lurry here, since the other ones in the grave are more important. Here's our first body. This would already be enough to, for example, go into our Fiendsmith sequence if we would only want to go for the fusion summon play. But we could also say, okay, I want my DD Vice King Requiem here. So then you would go Fiendsmith Requiem, equip to the Lacrima here, then place this here. And now we could make our Necro Princess with these cards here. And now we have 2 level 6 bodies here. Obviously, you can also make Beatrice. If you want to go the Beatrice line, though, you would make it a bit different. I can show you this in a second. But for example, you could now go into your DD Wave King High Caesar. And because we have not used our normal summon, we are safe from dip. If we have any other engine in hand now, we could use this. We also have this Requiem and Lacrima interaction on our opponent's turn live, which I can show you in a moment. Hopefully, because the RE normally doesn't do a lot in the main phase, unfortunately. This we can already activate, so let's do this. We shuffle Lacrima back to summon back our Requiem, but Requiem we can only activate in the main phase. So let our opponent cook here. He summons. Once, okay, normal summon success, we activate the Fiendsmith Requiem now here to summon back our Lacrima that we have just shuffled back, and then we can once again activate Lacrima, and here we can now send our trap. Our opponent makes a link summon. That's nice, because now I can actually show you the trap, and because our opponent has summoned a monster, we can now activate the trap that we have just sent with Lacrima, banish the trap, and send our Fiendsmith's Desiree to the graveyard. Now we can activate Desiree, shuffling back. I think Engraver and the Requiem are still here. In this case, we want to keep Engraver in the graveyard for next turn so that we can summon him, but the Requiem we want to summon from our extra deck once again to get another Fiendsmith Engraver, because next turn, so think about it like this, next turn we can get our Engraver back to the field, and the Engraver, if this one is back in the extra deck, which we will shuffle him back now, this one can then once again be turned into another Engraver, right? So we shuffle back the Requiem here, and then we can send the Link Spider to the graveyard. So it is end phase, then we get our turn back, and now in our graveyard we are drawing the Fabled Lurry here. In our graveyard we now have once again the Fiendsmith's effect ready, so we activate this, put back our Fiendsmith Desiree into the extra deck, because obviously we want to summon the guy, and now we have once again the Engraver. Now we could go Fusion Summon, obviously you could go Agnum Day, but it makes sense to just use, in this case, doesn't really matter, let's use the Lacrima, since she's also a Light Fiend, to once again go into Requiem here. Now we can once again use the Requiem, send it to, oh, this was equip, what? I didn't want to equip this. Okay, but normally, I don't know why this equipped now, I just want to send it. But what you would normally do here is use the Fiendsmith Requiem's effect to send away and get another Fiendsmith Engraver. And this is how you can get a lot of different bodies on the field, recycling them every turn, getting them back every turn. But now let me also show you how you would theoretically bridge from the Fiendsmith engine into another engine. So if we wanted to bridge into another engine, this is just an example show. We once again, in this example, start with the Fiendsmith Engraver in hand, grabbing the Tractus. Then we can activate the Tract to grab once again the Lurry. Lurry to the graveyard, mandatory effect, special summon Lurry. And once again we are going into Fiendsmith's Requiem, starting our entire Fiendsmith line here. Then once again either into the Engraver or into the Lacrima, depending on what we are getting here. I guess we get the Lacrima, so we are pretending that we can use her here, activate her and then send the Engraver to the graveyard. Now we have 2 Engravers, that's very nice. We can now go ahead and shuffle back the Fabled Lurry here in order to resummon the Engraver. And now we have all that we need to make a Fiendsmith sequence here. Fiendsmith sequence, 2 monsters, one of them needs to be a Light Fiend. And now we can activate Sequence effect. This is also an effect that is very good to imperm, for example, activate the sequence. And let's say we want to basically bridge into another engine. What we would then do, we could now also go into our boss monster, but we want to use our Lacrima. We make him with, let's say, so this is, by the way, where you have to decide, right? Because now I basically need to shuffle back either the Lacrima or the Fiendsmith Requiem, but this also means that this interaction of sending the trap to the graveyard on the opponent's turn, which I showed you, is not possible anymore. But I need to do it like this because if I shuffle back 2 Fiendsmith Engravers, then I cannot bridge into another engine. So let's shuffle back the Requiem here, and do we want to shuffle back? Let's shuffle back the Lacrima. Let's keep the Fiendsmith Engravers. And then we are going to Fusion Summon into our Lacrima here. And Lacrima on Summon can now activate to Special Summon or add to hand the Fiendsmith Engraver. We would add to hand the Engraver if we had not yet used the effect of searching, but we have. And now we have 2 level 6 bodies, right? And here is where you then go into your Beatrice. Here's the Beatrice, and now you can use the Beatrice to send, I don't have it in deck right now, but you can send Snake Eyes Ash, you can send your Jubel starter, you can send any of the starters basically to your graveyard. I am going to send the trap now. And what you can then do, because this already works, link 2 and another body makes Promethean Princess, and this can then revive Snake Eyes Ash from the graveyard and you are into your Snake Eyes engine. Link 2 and another body can make Muckracker from the underworld, which can revive your Samsara Lotus. And then there's also, don't ask me about the Memento stuff, but I think Memento, the Mementotal Goblin, you would also revive with your Muckracker from the underworld, I think. So these bodies are enough to basically go into your other engine, and this is how you bridge with the Fiendsmith engine into another engine, which is super, super strong. There are definitely way more use cases of the Fiendsmith engine, and we will explore them all in the upcoming days. I just wanted to show you the engine so that you understand how it operates and what it wants to do. And let me know in the comments if you have any further questions, and also let me know what you think of this engine. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, hitting a thumbs up and the notification bell, as this helps out a lot. And guys, we will see each other in the next one.